And welcome. Thanks for hopping onto this webinar on demand and watching through some of these new features for this latest release that we're going to be reviewing here this morning. We've got, for those of you who are joining in and watching here, we're looking at version 4.15.1.3739, or perhaps a version or two higher as we just continue to release new and improved versions. But excited to get these new features out to you and available. And going to step through what some of those are. Now, many of these ones, well, I'll start actually with the Hub. Just a quick comment in passing. If you're a Hub user, then you can get access to some of those latest updates and that we've pushed out there. Nothing too particular that we need to draw your attention to, just overall improvements on the backside, things that are performance-wise and so on. So hopefully as you get into the hub and so on in the next days, you should be noticing just some overall general improvements and things to what you can do there. So take advantage of those. Next thing I want to highlight is really the other program specific feature, or I should say maybe tools for how you can do things in the software. And then the other three, which are really kind of significant and big, those are more really kind of geared towards your user experience mode. So not so much tools to actually do the work, but just supporting features to how you use the software. So really excited about those, but really first, let's just jump over here into the list tab and talk about some changes and updates to the ability to manage your packs. Previous versions, you could come to a pack and you could right click on it and you could choose to rename the pack, or you could rename all of the packs. But now we've adjusted that to managing your house packs. This says house because this is the name of the list right here. So you can get there from right clicking on a pack, or I can right click on the list name and also get to the same spot of manage house packs. When this opens up, this is similar to the rename window that we had before, but a couple changes. One is that now we've pre-filled in all of those names into the rename as column. That way, if you're just trying to make a quick change, like before, main floor walls, and you just want it to say, walls instead of main wall, it's just a quick change and adjustment rather than having to type all of that in there. The other thing that we've done now is we've adjusted report multipliers. And so you can change those all in a batch operation right here, just all in one spot. So if you wanted to turn off, some of these other ones, like you wanted these to only be, you didn't want the drywall, the roofing, and the interior trim in this case. So you wanted to set those to 0. That's a fast way to get to the do not report mode, so that those packs won't show up on your report list. So yeah, for some of you out there who've been looking for a bulk way or a faster way to be able to make changes to your packs, both names as well as report multipliers or do not report capabilities, great new feature there. So again, you access that by right clicking on the list or on the pack and find that manage house packs or manage the packs feature there. From there, just shifting on now to those other three features I mentioned. One of them, the first one is to start with, is Autosave. And if you started this new version, more than likely, as you started it up for the first time, it asks you, do you want to turn this feature on? And so it's under your control. You don't have to use it or not, but it is available. So if you come up to your tool settings menu, you'll see right here, there's this option here for Autosave, which you can either check on or check off. Mine happens to be checked off at the moment, or not available, but I'll check it on. So now it's enabled. And now I can choose to say how often I want it to autosave for me. So this is a good clarification because autosaves may work different ways in different programs that you may have used in the past. So the way that autosave works in this program, as we've set it up here, is it's going to actually perform a save function at the increment of time that you indicate. So it's not saving every click or saving every adjustment or anything like that. Rather, instead, it's just choosing to save, or it's going to save as you hit those increment marks. So every 10 minutes, as long as you've been making changes, it's going to save a version of that of the file of the project that you're working on. So you can set that frequency as needed based on what your particular needs are and what workflow you like to have. Now, it's worth pointing out here, as you've probably learned and experienced in other software, when you're using something like an autosave feature, just be aware that that means that it does indeed save. So you can't just open up a file and say, well, I'm going to just work in it, and then after I work and play around with it for a while, I'm going to close it and not save it, and just be able to revert back to where I was before. If you're using autosave, that if it goes through that autosave process every 5 or 10 minutes or however you have it set, it will save and save any of those changes that you've made to it. So just be aware of that as you choose to whether or not you want to enable it or if you want to disable it, depending on what your personal preference is. Just be aware of those things. Now, my comments there also lead into the next feature, which if you're choosing to use autosave, actually can help with some of that if you see that as potentially some downsides as far as saving over or saving changes that you maybe didn't want to save. So that next feature relates to file version history, and you can see that's also here in the settings menu right here, where you can come and say you want to keep so many versions per project. Now, quick clarification, autosave and version history, they are two independent features. So even if you're not using autosave, you're just using standard saving practices, you can choose to leverage this file version history. In this latest version, the defaults, I believe, coming in are going to be 10 versions of a particular project. And then those versions, those extra versions, those sort of background versions, history versions, can be viewed for as up to about 14 days since they were last accessed. So if you don't access those versions after 14 days in the way that mine is set up right here, those will be removed so that we're not taking up extra space on your hard drive more than necessary. And you can adjust these. So if you only want to keep around 3 or 4 versions and you only want to keep them around for 14 days, or maybe you want to make it longer, 45 days, but only like 3 versions. And so customize as needed and do it there. So just take a look and see how this functions. So how can you access these? So I've got my job open here, and let's say that I even make a change. So I made a change recently here, and I'll save this. That with that main walls, the S added onto the end of that file name. So you can see I just saved it. And maybe I'll just make one more change that's easy to see. I'll rename this pack as roof framing. Okay, and we make that change, and then we'll save that as well. So since I'm using version history, those different versions of that I've saved are still available for me to revert back to if I wanted to. So to access those, I'm going to come up here to the File menu, and you will have now a different option there called Version History. And you can see here a little dot indicates that I am currently looking at the latest version, which was saved not very long ago. But I also have these other versions that I've created that I've saved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other versions that are available for me to look at. If I wanted to revert back and say, hey, well, what was this version like back at, say, 12:15 of today? So I'll select that. And what it's going to do is it's going to, in essence, close my current version of this file. And it's going to then reopen this file looking at that previous version. So you can see there that I've got that there. And if I come up to, I can look around. So now I actually have another list that's here that, wasn't in the most recent version. I deleted this list. So now I have this list back and available to look at. And I could also come up to version history and note 2 things now. One, the latest version no longer has the dot byte. Instead, I'm looking at this version. And, I could go back to some of the other versions and look at them. So let's say I'm going to look at it, say, well, that's maybe a little too far back in the history. I want to come back and look at this one that was at 12:17 today. So I'll open that one up. So again, what it's going to do is going to close down that previous version history, and then it's going to transition and pull up the version of that file that was saved at that point. Now, if you ever want to, in essence, move forward with this particular file. So it's like, well, I no longer want to use the latest version. Instead, I want to move ahead and go from here and this become my latest version. What you can do is you can just come into the software and say, hey, I'm going to make changes and start adjusting and moving and changing your file as needed. And then when you go to save it, I'm going to come here. I'm going to, maybe just to make a point here, I'll rename this list. Okay, I'm going to hit save. And when I hit save, it's going to ask me, you are using a save version history file, and you'll have different options of the routes you can take. Yeah, but essentially, if you click yes, what you're saying to this is, do you want this file to become the current version of this project? So basically, abandon the previous latest version and now make this as the primary version. So I can click yes. So we'll do that. And so that's what it's going to do. It's going to go through and it's going to save the file. And now if I look at my file version history, I'm now looking at the latest version, and previous versions continue to be available for me to revert back to and take a look at. So that's how you can, and then if at any time, if you're browsing a version history, what we didn't do in this case, if I was back on one of these versions, if I ever wanted to just return to the latest version, of course, I could just come up to the top of the menu, select latest version, and it would pull back up that most recently saved file version. So that's the way you can leverage and those history versions that are available to you. So that can be especially handy if you've made some pretty drastic changes to the file. And then decide, wow, I don't really want to do that anymore. I want to go back to where I had saved last. This can be a great way to do that. Also worth noting that if you are, as far as those file versions, and the only history stuff that will be removed. So if you're concerned about that, if you come to the tools and settings menu, and you look at, delete unaccessed versions after 14 days. Those history versions would never remove your actual core file. So your standard file, the one that you saved and the one that you would be used to going back to and finding in your projects folder, double clicking onto opening, of course, that file would never be removed. It would just be the previous versions, the history versions that are passed behind you. Those will be the ones that are removed instead. So those are two of those exciting features that we're rolling out there: autosave, version history, and then one more, which there's been many users who have been very interested in seeing over in the last many years, and we're excited to finally get it out here and available. And that is the ability for the software to now remember your window arrangement in here. So, for example, if I come in here to my job and I take my plan tab and I pull it out to the side. Hopefully you knew that you could do this. If not, here's some more information that you can. But I've got my plan tab. So I have this, and maybe I want to set this over onto my separate window over here. I could also open up another digitizer window. So I could click this and I'll open that up. And maybe on this particular digitizer window, this number 2, I want to pull the pages out and drop it out here. And so now I've got my pages sitting here, my second digitizer here. And of course, we're only on one screen. So it's hard to show this as much, but you can imagine this spread across either a very large monitor or multiple different monitors that you might have. I might also want to rearrange this differently. Maybe I want my bookmark items to be stacked on top of my markup items for that one. Maybe in my core digitizer, I want to have my takeoff items list at the top of the list. So I'm going to rearrange it up here. Here's my takeoff items at the top. My pages list is down here. So all sorts of things of how you could rearrange things. In addition, like in my core digitizer, maybe I want to show, I don't want to I want my list to show. Now this would be different. I already had it showing, but I want my list pack to show. Maybe I want my takeoff items list to be this wide in these columns. These will be other things that are going to be remembered for you, the size of the application product and so on. Okay, so said a lot here, just kind of rearrange these windows all in front of you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a file. And we're going to close. So we're going to exit. We're going to just totally exit the program and close everything down. So if I want to save, sure, we can save it. So we'll save the project and it's going to close all those windows down for me. Now I'm going to open up the software again. And as it does, one thing you're going to notice first is that it's going to, first of all, return just the original window right here to the same position on the screen, as well as the same size that I had it. So even just the core core size of the window, that's going to be remembered. If you go to open a project, so I'll go to my recents and open that project up. Once it opens up that project, it's going to open up those other additional windows that I had and rearrange them and put them where they go, just as I had them arranged on the page. So, here I can see my Digitizer 2 pages 2 is pulled out. My takeoff windows is up here. I've got my list. I've got my different column sizes the way that I had them. The bookmarks is stacked on top or combined with the markup items. So all those different things, those are all now going to be remembered through your different sessions. One of the other things that can be helpful for this, if you ever want to reset things. So for example, let's say that we wanted to close down this pages 2, or maybe we just wanted to combine everything. We're going to click on the home button here. There's these new little home buttons that are up in here in these peripheral windows. If I click on the home window, it's going to send all of those associated items back together again. So I clicked home on things that affected the Digitizer 2, and all those Digitizer 2 items will return to their original core position, which would also allow me now I can actually close this if I want to. Similar thing with the takeoff window. If I wanted to put the plan tab actually back into its place over here, I can do that. I can click the home button and it will recollect everything, all those different panes, wherever they're sitting at, pull them back into the view and set them back into the plan tab here, just sort of resetting everything. And finally, if stuff is just sort of, you have things scattered around all sorts of places, all different spots, and you really just want to have a sort of a reset entirely all to program defaults, you can come to Tools and come to Settings. And over here, when it says Window Layout on the program start, you can say next session only reset to the default arrangement. And then when you close down and reopen it back up, it will basically just sort of reset everything just to the program defaults. But then at that point, it will allow you to continue to, it will save those arrangements that you create from that point going on. And then final comment is this, we know that, everybody likes to work things differently. Everyone has different expectations. And so if you just really prefer the other way that the software has been for years, where it just sort of opens up at a standard location all the time, and you like to just be able to see everything reset back to its beginning as you open up new projects, you can turn this feature off. You can come down here to the window layout, and you can just say always use default window arrangement. If you set your settings to this, every single time the software opens, it will always open up to just that standard core position, everything returned back into the standard locations. So if that's your preference of how you like things to be, just want to kind of preserve the existing behavior as it's been, then you can set that way. But really encourage you to at least try it out, the save the custom window arrangement across sessions. Excited to get that out to you guys, and again, that's going to apply not only to those window arrangements, but even also to things like your columns. So like if you like to see the plan scale, like I have my plan scale shown here, you can right click, you can come here to the menu, right click and choose to check that box for plan scale. That way you can actually see that, and that will then be preserved through different sessions. So lots of exciting things there. Hopefully, as you get into it, you'll find some good efficiency gains and just overall good experience as you continue to use the software. One final note as we close this down is just some visual for you here on that autosave. So currently my autosave is enabled, and that shows up here. So if I wanted to change that, come to Tools, come to Settings. If I wanted to turn that off, click Done. That will go away. So if you're ever wondering, you tend to toggle that back on and off and on and off, you can always know just by glancing up here whether or not that's currently enabled. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to jump in here and learn more about what's new. As usual, if you have any questions, totally feel free to reach out to us. You can always find us here at Help in the Online Learning Center. There's a chat location. You can jump in and reach out to us. We also have email, support@prebuiltml.com. And also give us a call at our support number as well. So thanks so much, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you, hearing your feedback, and how we continue to improve the software for you in the future. Talk to you more later. Thanks.